Why do many of us feel so often unhappy? And in the moment happiness opens up for us, why is it so hard to hold on? Can Kabbalah provide an explanation and give guidance in leading a more happy and fulfilled life? Today, we will delve deeper into the hidden wisdom of Kabbalah and search for answers to the aforementioned questions. Imagine we find a relation between Kabbalah and happiness. How cool would it be, you finding out today that Kabbalah can bring more happiness to your life? Welcome to another Kabbalah Explained Simply. My name is Anne Pier, and let's reveal some key teachings from the Kabbalah. Because the topic Kabbalah and happiness most probably is very close to what we really want. And to avoid any disappointments, I have the following disclaimer. It goes as follows. We are not aiming on solving personal problems in this session, but give a direction on what makes a person happy, approached from a Kabbalistic perspective. The study of Kabbalah requires perseverance and long-term commitment to reach the results mentioned in this session. Okay, with this out of the way, we are go. So, what makes us happy? Kabbalah offers various insights and practices aimed at increasing happiness and spiritual fulfillment in life. But before we get into those, we first need to have an understanding about what it is that makes us happy. In random order, the main generally accepted conditions that contribute to a happy life are good health. No surprise here, right? Good health refers both to physical and mental well-being, from the foundation for happiness because it enables us to engage fully in life activities. The balance between work and life, also no surprise here, because think about how the right balance between work commitments and leisure and family time helps you to maintain mental and emotional health. To have autonomy and control, because having a sense of control over your life choices supports feelings of independence. And to have financial stability, sure. We all know that wealth alone doesn't guarantee happiness, but having enough resources to meet basic needs is very important. Also, contributing to a happy life are positive relations. Especially strong, supportive relationships with family, friends, communities not only provide feelings of connection and love, but also a sense of belonging. Having purpose and meaning in life, because engaging in meaningful work, hobbies or pursuits give us a sense of purpose that can greatly increase and enhance life satisfaction. A healthy mind and a healthy body. Think about regular exercising, proper nutrition, sufficient sleep. They are all necessary. They all contribute to overall well-being. One of my favorites, personal growth. Opportunities for learning, self-improvement, achieving personal goals. They all nurture a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. Take, for example, children. They are always growing and developing. When you see a child being unhappy, something is really wrong, right? I wonder if anyone could be happy without having feelings of gratitude and optimism sometimes. Having a positive outlook and appreciation what one has can increase overall happiness. And last but surely not least, community and social engagement, because participating in community activities and helping others promote feelings of belonging and purpose and make us feel more complete and happy. While the individual circumstances can vary, these conditions are widely recognized as key factors that foster happiness and life satisfaction. I hope you recognize at least some of them. So, what is said from the wisdom of Kabbalah about happiness? To start from a kind of neutral ground, I searched the internet about what it says about Kabbalah and happiness. I think we can work with it in today's session. Kabbalah teaches that true happiness comes from connecting with the divine source of all creation. By cultivating a consciousness of divine presence and aligning ourselves with spiritual light, we experience unbounded inner joy and fulfillment. I will read it again. We will use it through our session. Kabbalah teaches that true happiness comes from connecting with the divine source of all creation. By cultivating a consciousness of divine presence and aligning ourselves with spiritual light, we experience unbounded inner joy and fulfillment. Well, this sounds really promising, right? But what is true happiness? Where to find this divine source and how to connect with it? And what is spiritual light and how can we cultivate consciousness of a divine presence? Unbounded. Does this mean I will always receive more? That I will explode out of happiness? Now we more or less revealed and defined our pursuit to happiness. We can start researching if and how Kabbalah can contribute to my happiness, right? Our happiness. And for this purpose, we first need to clarify some contexts of Kabbalah in order not to get confused. So, first of all, we spoke about the divine source. First, we need to understand what Kabbalists explain about this divine source. The divine source is the creator, and this equals the quality of pure bestowal, unconditional love, a pure desire to give. Kabbalists explain further that the Creator created the world to be able to execute his giving. For this purpose, he created a created being upon which he can bestow, hence a desire to receive. So the Creator is on the giving side of this equation, the blue arrow, and we humans, the whole of nature, are on the receiving end. This is represented by the cup. In Kabbalah, we call this a vessel. About being conscious of this divine presence. He created us as pure receivers, hence with the quality to receive, a quality that is 100% opposite to his quality, the quality of giving, of bestowal. And Kabbalists use the example of a die and its imprint. Though we are created from his quality, we are the total opposite. Kabbalists call this existence from absence. And because we are opposite from the Creator, we don't perceive him with our senses. He, and with him his divinity and bestowal, his good deeds, are fully concealed from us. It's like a barrier that prevents us from perceiving the Creator due to our oppositeness in desires. That is why we don't have any sensation of the Creator and experience the sufferings in the world. So, if this barrier is preventing us to perceive divinity, this divine presence, how then can we find divinity? Or moreover, how do we connect with it? Well, the good news is that the finding has begun because you are here. For those few that have an inclination towards this divinity, what Kabbalists call an awakened point in the heart, these people find Kabbalah as a kind of manual in order to be able to find and to reveal divinity, to find the Creator and to connect to him. From this perspective, I guess congratulations are in order for you being here and finding Kabbalah. Okay, seriously. To become more aware and more conscious, the main thing we need to do is to change our own perception into a perception of the Creator. Then we can connect to divinity and look, as to say, through His eyes at creation. So, how do we do it? How do we connect to divinity? Kabbalists say that we need to change our quality in being equal to the quality of the Creator. When we have the same quality, we not only will find Him, but we also be able to connect with Him and even to become like Him. But you might say, He made us receivers for a purpose, in order for Him to give. Aren't we changing His plan of creation by changing our quality? Good question, really good question. But no, our desire will remain that of a receiver, but our intention will be like a giver. This is the core of what Kabbalists advise us to do in order to come to adhesion with the Creator. They call it equivalence of form, because our intention equals the quality of the Creator. And in such a way, we connect to divinity, to the Creator, where we perceive Him and receive His unbounded abundance. Okay, this sounds doable. Let's go for it. There's a catch here. The catch is that we cannot change ourselves. We are and will be a desire to receive. This is how we were created, and we cannot change our nature. We cannot change our intention from receiving into giving. It would be the same like telling an Apple computer to reboot as a Windows computer without any external interference. It would need another architecture or at least another external influence. It's the same with us. We need to request the Creator to change us. And coming to this request is a process in and of itself, and this is what Kabbalists call a prayer. You might ask, but we aren't in contact with divinity, so how do we start the process of change and ask the Creator to help us? This is done by what Kabbalists call the light. You cannot compare this light with the daylight in our world. It's so-called spiritual light that comes to us from the other side of the barrier to induce the necessary change in our intention, to change us to succeed in equivalence of form with the Creator. How to draw this spiritual light is one of the main focal points in the study of Kabbalah. Rabash, a renowned and great Kabbalist, actually the teacher of my teacher, of Dr. Michael Leitman, writes amongst others the following words about the change in intention that leads to contact with the Creator, called equivalence of form. He writes, "As there is joy above from bestowing downward, so the lower one should enjoy bestowing upward. This is called equivalence of form. Hence, if the lower one receives because he enjoys bestowing upward, it is called equivalence of form, where all his pleasure is that he gives. This is called, as he is merciful, so you are merciful." Above and below here designates in this text the relation between us and the Creator, where the quality of bestowal is above the quality of reception, indicating the greater importance of bestowal. Merciful means here to give, to be a giver, just like the Creator, and to enjoy this giving. So, what's holding me back to find this true Kabbalistic happiness and connection with this divine upper source? Well, actually nothing. You just need to study the wisdom of Kabbalah. But before we go any further, there's another important element of our will to receive relating to happiness that we need to address. And that is that we have been created as being deficient. It comes without words that the lack of fulfillment of the at the start mentioned conditions, the chart we opened up in the beginning, cause feelings and situations of unhappiness. We should be aware that there is a mechanism in our nature that prevents us from experiencing unbounded pleasure and happiness. Remember, we were created as a desire to receive. When the desire is deficient, being represented by the cup, and the fulfillment enters the desire, we experience pleasure. But the moment the fulfillment enters the desire and gets fulfilled, the deficiency diminishes and the desire quenches. Hence, the pleasure quenches with it. Up to the moment that more fulfillment even will reach a point of rejection. Let me explain this with the desire we all have, the desire to eat. Think about the situation that you are very hungry. You would have a huge deficiency to eat. Imagine that you have an immense appetite. The moment you start eating, you will experience great joy of the fulfillment, your first bite of food. But your hunger lessens with every bite until the point you are completely satisfied. Imagine the situation: you are completely satisfied, cannot eat anymore, and when you are offered more food at this point, you will reject it because it will not give you any pleasure. Moreover, it might even repel you, changing into anti-pleasure, called suffering. This, unfortunately, but this is the operating mechanism for all our desires. And I'm afraid it doesn't end here. Due to the nature of our will to receive, we experience pleasure when we receive, when the fulfillment enters the desire, as we just saw. Spiritual giving, the quality of the Creator, or you could say His language, when we haven't yet equipped our vessel with the right intention, evokes in us feelings of darkness, emptiness, in short, suffering. Perhaps this is one of the biggest misunderstandings from the perspective of the created being, because the nearing of the Creator with this quality of giving towards us evokes in us suffering when we aren't yet prepared for His giving. And the misunderstanding becomes real when we start running away from these sufferings, remaining unaware of their purpose or origin, and by this prolonging the time that we are separated from the divine source. Okay, let's it sink in a bit. And let's bring the Kabbalistic definitions and approach we just covered to a next level, to a level of a method, what Kabbalah actually is. Perhaps by now you begin to get a feeling that we really need a method to counteract our nature in order to receive true happiness. Kabbalah is Hebrew for receiving. And Kabbalah as a wisdom, as a method, is about correction of the desire to receive with the intention for self into receiving with the intention to bestow. And when we have aligned our intention with that of the Creator, we will be able to perceive Him and to receive His abundance and experience unbounded happiness. Again, our current desires, which Kabbalists address, isn't suitable for perceiving any divinity whatsoever. Our current state is separation, not feeling the Creator. And as said before, we misunderstand the Creator because He's constantly inviting us to come to Him. But because it doesn't appear to us as pleasure, we run away from His nearing. So, how do Kabbalists break this never-ending cycle? Baal Salam, the great Kabbalist from the 20th century, explained this with an allegory of the guest and the host. I chose this allegory because it gives a simpler explanation of what it means to correct your desire in order to match it with the right form, the form of the Creator. Baal Salam writes the following. I shall explain that with an allegory from life, he says. Man's nature is to cherish and favor the quality of bestowal, and to despise and loathe reception from one's friend. Hence, when one comes to one's friend's house, and he, the host, invites him for a meal, he, the guest, will decline, even if he's very hungry, since in his eyes it is humiliating to receive a gift from his friend. Yet, when his friend sufficiently implores him, until it's clear that he would do his friend a big favor by eating, he agrees, the guest. The guest agrees to eat as he no longer feels that he is receiving a gift and that his friend is the giver, the host. On the contrary, he, the guest, is the giver now, doing his friend a favor by receiving this good from him. Thus you find that although hunger and appetite are vessels of reception designated for eating, and that person had sufficient hunger and appetite to receive his friend's meal, he still could not taste the thing due to shame. Yet, as his friend implored him and he rejected him, new vessels for eating began to form in him. Since the power of his friend's pleading and the power of his own rejection, as they accumulated, finally added up to a sufficient amount that turned the measure of reception into a measure of bestowal. In the end, he saw that by eating, he would do a big favor and bring great contentment to his friend. In that state, new vessels of reception to receive his friend's meal were born in him. And now it's considered that his power of rejection has become the essential vessel in which to receive the meal, and not the hunger and appetite, although they are actually the usual vessels of reception. Okay, this is quite highly written, so let's give some explanation. Let's try to translate this allegory to a Kabbalistic formula. You remember our deficient desire to receive. The desire Baal Salam uses in his allegory is the desire to eat. The deficiency here is the appetite, and the fulfillment is the meal. We have just read that Baal Salam writes that man's nature is to cherish and favor the quality of bestowal and to despise and loathe the reception, in this case the reception from his friend who prepared a meal for him. Let's explain this a bit. Why do we not value reception? If you think about it, it's actually strange because it is fulfillment of our desire and therefore our pleasure. Where does this appreciation for altruism, for giving, come from, and this loathing of reception, which is actually our nature? Just think about the situation where you call someone an egoist, or you have been called an egoist. It's not a compliment, right? Everyone likes to think of himself as doing good for others, that we do good to the world. Even if it's our nature to receive for ourselves, it just doesn't have a great status being a receiver. Kabbalists explain to us that our attitude towards reception and bestowal is originated in our spiritual root, because we stem from the same source as the Creator. So, therefore, he, the guest, will decline his friend's offering because he experiences it as humiliating and loathsome. He also wants to be a giver, and therefore he restricts himself. because he doesn't want the meal to enter his vessel of reception due to the shame and the humiliation of being a receiver, and therefore being opposite to the quality of the host, who's a giver. Note here that when we speak about restriction, it's actually already a spiritual structure which can only be attained by raising the importance of bestowal over reception. Also, the shame mentioned here is spiritual and will be attained only after studying Kabbalah for some time. The things we use in practical life are not the same. So let's continue here. Because the guest says in this stage, where he has put this restriction, I don't want to receive anything. I want to bestow, just like you. That's what the guest says to the host. You have shown me your love, and I feel it. How can I do the same to you? And Baal Salam continues here. Yet, when his friend sufficiently implores him until it's clear that he would do his friend a big favor by eating, he agrees to eat, because now he no longer feels that he is receiving a gift, that he's a receiver, and that his friend is the giver. On the contrary, he, the guest, becomes now the giver, doing his friend a favor by receiving this good from him. So here the guest finds a solution for this receiving part and says, I will receive only for the sake of the host. Since the host has the desire to bestow and wants me to receive, I must first enter into his desire so that it becomes my goal to fulfill his desire. I enter his desire and feel there how he loves me, how much he wants me to receive, how he suffers from my refusal, not accepting his offering. I work with his desire and think only about how I can fulfill that desire. And through being inside the friend, his desire, the desire of the host, and striving only to fulfill that, I discover the ability to do so within myself by accepting the meal and enjoying it. Because only through the pleasure that I feel can I bring pleasure to the host. I'm even obliged to receive and enjoy without limit, because I feel how this fills him. And here in this stage, the guest is changing his intention. He's changing his intention from in order to receive, in order to bestow. He receives in order to bestow, in order to give the host contentment. This is the stage where we have changed our intention and come in equivalence of form with the host, hence the quality of bestowal. Great, right? Great. Mission accomplished. What more to say? Yeah, we almost forgot happiness. What about unbounded pleasure and happiness? Baal Salam hadn't finished his allegory and continues. Yet, as his friend implored him and he rejected his friend pleading, new vessels for eating began to form in him, in the friend. Since the power of his friend's pleading, the host, and the power of his own rejection as the guest, as they accumulated, finally added up to a sufficient amount that turned the measure of reception into a measure of bestowal. It's like magic. In the end, he saw that by eating, he would do a big favor and bring great contentment to his friend. In that state, new vessels of reception to receive his friend's meal were born in him. New vessels, different vessels. They still receive, but with a different intention. Now it's considered that his power of rejection has become the essential vessel in which to receive the meal, and not the hunger and appetite, although they are actually the usual vessels for reception. As a result, the fulfillment, what Kabbalists call inner light, spreads in our desire, which is the revelation of the quality of the Creator, the host, which equals unbounded pleasure, love, and connection, true happiness. So, in a nutshell, we build this new structure, these new vessels, which enable us to perceive the spiritual world, to be in contact with the Creator. This is all realized above our will to receive, what means that we make the desire to bestow more important than the desire to receive. You might ask now, how do we build this structure, right? Sounds really straightforward. How to attain these new vessels? Where and how can we implement the Kabbalistic formula? Because until now, where and how do we implement it? It looks a bit mechanical and abstract. And you are right. And a characteristic of the study of Kabbalah is that it is actually very practical and experiential. So how then do we implement it? As said earlier, Kabbalah is a wisdom. It's a method that is passed on through generations of teacher-student relations and through authentic books. Nowadays, each one of us can study Kabbalah. We only need 3 things for our study. First of all, we need an authentic teacher. An authentic teacher is someone who functions as a guide for students because he attained the formula and degrees that come with it, and therefore he can lead the way. We also need authentic books, books that are written by Kabbalists who have attainment. Kabbalah was concealed through the ages for the masses, only accessible for a small number of Kabbalistic groups. Today, Kabbalah is wide open for the masses, but be aware to study from authentic books written by true Kabbalists, else you will not succeed in your spiritual search. And the third requirement is to have a spiritual group where we practice and do exercises of connection that Kabbalists advise us to do. People who have the same goal as you have, to want to reveal the greater good. As you heard in the allegory of Baal Salam, we call them friends. And it is in such a society where we can implement the Kabbalistic formula and draw the spiritual light that will correct us, that will give us an intention to bestow, and an opening to the spiritual world and a lot of true happiness. Here you have the group. So, dear viewers, we are coming to a conclusion of this Kabbalah Explained Simply. Can Kabbalah bring us closer or contribute to happiness in life? Let's look at the chart that we introduced in the beginning of this session. Perhaps this chart now feels a bit more distanced from us than the first time we opened it, if it's only like 35 minutes ago. Because Kabbalah reveals for us the root cause of happiness. And perhaps these conditions begin to feel to us more like outcomes. But let's just check with our new awareness how conditions or desires are likely positively influenced by engaging in Kabbalah. I wonder, could there be a higher purpose or meaning of life than meeting the Creator? When true questions about meaning of life awaken in man, Kabbalists explain that this is the moment that the Creator knocks on your door and that Kabbalah came to you as a guide to find the answer to these questions. So, I guess there will be more fulfillment for purpose and meaning. Personally, I think it's without words that your personal growth will be greatly fulfilled when you start changing your nature and coming close to the Creator. Personally, I think there cannot be any greater development for man. And another condition, Kabbalah teaches that addressing and transforming negative emotions, like there are like envy, anger, or doubt, that transforming these emotions clears the way for spiritual joy, which fulfillment is everlasting and eternal, instead of the worldly fleeing desires and fulfillments. Experiencing this as truthful will give a whole new perspective on life, which goes along with great feelings of gratitude and optimism, also fulfilling this condition on a higher level. In the study, practically, in the study of Kabbalah, you will be performing daily actions with mindful intention towards others, and those will elevate feelings of connection and love, but also a sense of belonging and helping others to transform mundane activities to spiritual acts. It will greatly enhance positive relations and social engagements. And what about the other aspects of happiness that are on the chart? So the influence of Kabbalah doesn't end here. Indirectly, on the long term, there is also a positive influence on the remaining conditions. Because you become more aware of your life choices, it will generate feelings of independence and satisfaction. So being more aware of your conscious decisions and their outcome, that will greatly benefit your feelings of autonomy and control, and will have a positive spin-off towards lifestyle and work balance challenges. And because all the improvements towards happiness on so many terrains, it's assumable that your health will also increase. At least your health will not deteriorate anymore due to being so unhappy, right? And even in the long term, assuming you will be successful in the study, your financial stability will improve, simply because you made true contact with the system of the Creator that wants you to succeed. Generally, in the study, we see that the battle on the outside becomes more a battle on man's internality. Okay, some closing words. We began this session by asking, can Kabbalah provide an explanation and give guidance in leading a more happy life? I hope this session provided this explanation, that we now see that fulfilling the mentioned conditions are actually more at the level of necessity and therefore important, but that we even can aspire to a higher level of happiness. And for us to experience this true happiness, we came to the conclusion that we need to change our intention in order to bestow and come in equivalence of form with the Creator. I hope that the answers provided here resonated with you personally and were meaningful for you. And who knows what? Perhaps we will meet in the next Kabbalah Explained Simply, or even in the study itself. It would be great. You are warmly invited to experience one of the spiritual groups that are everywhere around the world. And if you prefer, after this session, there's already the possibility to enter a spiritual society and ask and listen to remaining questions about today's session. The link for this Q&A follows after the tune. So thank you for joining. Check out next episodes of Kabbalah Explained Simply. My name is Anne Pier, and I wish you a lot of true happiness.
you.